minutes, Ian's going to come and start our new preaching series, but I wanted to introduce that to you so you know where we are planning to go. And I want to start with a question. Is there something that somebody said to you, or maybe that you read, maybe many years ago, that has stayed with you and really influenced your thinking? That moment when something came into your mind and you thought, that's important, I need to hang on to that, I need to do something with it, I need to engage with it. One of those moments for me was reading something that Mark Green wrote back in 2006, so nearly 20 years ago. At the time, he was the executive director of the London Institute for Contemporary Christianity, and he wrote this. He said, "The UK will never be reached until we create open, authentic, learning and praying communities that are focused on making whole-life disciples who live and share the gospel wherever they relate to people in their daily lives." Mark was looking forward to a time when each person who believed in Jesus and the communities in which they worshipped and served had a focus on living each day as a fully committed follower of Jesus, with a desire to introduce others to Jesus as well. And there's so much that excites me about that. I recognize the challenge, there's a long way to go, but there's hope in there that this nation can change because of people telling people about Jesus and modeling that in the way they live. And over the last few years here, we've been thinking, among other things, of what this might look like and how we can be more aligned to how Jesus calls us to live. But we haven't really spent a lot of time looking at the example of Jesus and his early followers to help us do that. And we're hoping to put that right over the next few months. This is not about pointing out where we are getting things wrong. This is based on a deep conviction that the more we can align ourselves with the way Jesus calls us to live, the more fulfilling and rewarding our lives will be. He loves us. He knows what is best for us. He wants us to experience that to the full in our lives. And our context is clearly not the same as the one in which Jesus and his first disciples lived and operated. I believe their story can help us understand what it means to follow Jesus today. And so as we do this, we're going to look at 6 different perspectives on what it means to be a disciple, to be a follower of Jesus, who is seeking to introduce others to him. These are they. We're going to be thinking about the job, and Ian's going to kick that off this morning. What's the description about? What are we supposed to be doing? We're going to look at some examples of people who are called by Jesus to do this. We're going to look at the example of Jesus himself. We're going to recognize that living this way actually calls for change in the way in which we live. What does that look like? Are we up for it? Are there things that get in the way and stop us? And what do we need to do about it? That's what we will be doing. And we're taking a slightly different approach. We're taking a bit longer over this than we have done previously. It's hoping to engage with it a bit more deeply, for it to make a real difference. And so for each of those 6, there's a number of themes we've identified that fall within them. In some, there's just one. The first one, there's just one, and we're thinking about that today. In the third one, the example of Jesus, we're going to look at 3 things. The example of Jesus in the way he was spoken about as doing and teaching. What does that mean? How does that affect how we live? Jesus was also described as being full of grace and truth. How should that change who we are? There was a time when Jesus sent out 72 of his followers on mission. And what they had seen of how Jesus operated enabled them to carry on his work. How can that help us and encourage us? And so we're going to look at each theme within a particular perspective over a number of weeks. And in family services, we'll look at them again in a different way. So we're going to take a bit of time over this. And then at the end of each block, so there's these 6 blocks, we want to do something that we recognize is slightly different. We want to particularly focus on some practical ways in which we can grow in the things we've been talking about. And we want to share stories. So we're encouraging us all to really engage with this. And as we explore what these things mean, to think, well, I tried that and it worked. I tried that and it was an absolute failure. And both of those stories are important to hear. And so in that last Sunday in each block, we're going to be sharing some practical ideas, but also encouraging people to come and share stories so that we can grow and encourage each other. And our desire is that spending a bit more time to explore these things in a bit more depth, to listen to stories of them being worked out in practice, will help us all to grow into the best that Jesus has for us. Will develop in us a deeper desire to introduce people to Jesus and help us to know how we can best do that in our context. So overall, that would take about 6 months. We're going to take breaks along the way over December, for example, to look at other things. That's where we're going. More details to follow. But we are excited about this. We want to encourage everyone to engage in it, to be open to what Jesus wants to do in our lives through the prompting and power of Holy Spirit. So that's our journey. Ian's going to kick us off in just a moment, talking about that job description. But to prepare us for that, Geeta is going to come and read some words from Matthew 28.